Welcome back to Delboy's Garage, and today we will be covering in detail how to skin up. Right, so here we are now, everything ready to go. I've got this bonded firmly on now. You can pick the tank up by it, and it's as strong as it needs to be, and the most important thing of all is in exactly the right position. Nothing moved, nothing wiggled about, and it is firmly bonded down to the tank. So that out of the way, I can now start skinning this thing up. So the first thing of all is, because this bonding cement, caulk, glues, adhesive, whatever you choose to call it, because it is susceptible to petrol or gasoline, it will melt if easy for you to say. It will melt if gasoline gets on it. So I've got to coat that before I do anything else in a quick layer of resin. Just going to put fiberglass resin over the top. Fiberglass resin is petrol resistant, if you wish. You can pour petrol on it and it doesn't normally reactivate it, but this stuff, even though it's cured and it's nice and firm, it will still reactivate and go soft again and melt if you put petrol or gasoline on it. And obviously that's a gas tank, that's that area there. If any of the fuel goes underneath here, it could then lift this off, and then it will start to get ugly. It's not so much that it will lift it off, because it will be fiberglassed in and matted down and painted and so on at the end. However, if right at the base level, the point where this contacts the tank is bridged, is in any way compromised, then it just could lead to issues. And again, thinking about it up front, taking the trouble to do the extra little bit to make sure you don't is all important. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the tank cap unit entirely out completely, so I can get that out and get the hole, just an open hole, and then I can put some resin around the inside just to protect it, literally, just to keep the gasoline from getting anywhere near this in the future. And then all of that's got to be resin as well. Once that's done, it can cure, and then I can start putting a wee skin on top of this. Okay, let's get stuck in. buddy of mine that I follow on the net, Dan Bethel, made a comment about using enough hardener in these epoxy chemicals such as fillers, Bondo, P38, whatever it is, or resins. And it's a very wise and valid point. So I want to reiterate it in this video as well, because what I'm trying to do with these videos is not just show you how the bike's going and show you the build, but also trying to teach you a few little processes along the way and a few little very important tips, things that you can use that will really help you learn things and better your skills as you go along, so that you understand things and that you don't make mistakes that cost money. And what I mean by that is these chemical, hang on a minute, right, these chemical processes, resins and hardeners, right? These things, when you buy them, are not cheap. When you buy this product, you mix the hardener with the resin, and what you end up with is this cured process. But it's a very important thing that I heard Dan mention recently, and I just wanted to reiterate it for any of you, and that is to make sure you use enough hardener. It's very important. You can use the recommended amount of hardener that's on the packaging, and that's fine. It will cure, hopefully. And that's because the recommended amount is the minimum. It's the recommended minimum in ambient temperature. If you continue reading the instructions, and look how long they are, then you'll see it also says minimum amount in these temperatures, between this and this temperature. So you've got to read all of that. Now, I've always said that, to be honest, use more. It's what's known as a hot load. Dan referred to it recently as mixing a hot load, and what it simply means is putting more hardener into the chemical than you put normally. So that means it ensures that it goes hard, it fully cures. When you mix the hardener with the material, whether it be body filler or resin, you set off a chemical process. That process of hardening, I don't know how it works, it's an epoxy process. I'm guaranteed there'll be one of you out there that does know, but the point is it starts to go solid. And if you put too much or more hardener in than recommended, you simply have a reduced working time. And the reason they advise a given amount, a minimum amount of hardener, is it gives you a nice long working time. And those of you who are following instructions on packaging are going to be amateurs, aren't we? Think about it. The professionals don't need to know. They've been doing it for years. They don't even read the packaging. All their chemicals come in big white tubs with hardener written on them. They know what to do because they're professionals. Those of us amateurs who are doing it, we follow the instructions. So the instructions have to be clear, reasonably concise, and safe. They know that you're going to take your time working the job. What they don't want is you halfway through the job, it goes solid and you still haven't finished working it. So they always suggest a minimum hardener to give you a nice long working time, so you can work the job, get it all on there, and it works. But if you put a bit more in, it will cure quicker and more completely. And the reason I wanted to just make this point was it's not about just a long working time. There's another issue as well. They give advice on a minimum amount of this hardener. The minimum. Obviously, that's important, because otherwise any less and it won't cure. So that minimum is a judgment. Some of the fillers say a golf ball sized piece of filler to a pea-sized piece of hardener. But how accurate is that? How accurately are you doing that? You look at it, you squirt it down, you go, yeah, that's about right. But if it's a tiny bit too little, what will happen, and you may have experienced this, is the product won't go off. It won't set hard, it will stay sticky. Now, if ever you've put filler or resin on a job and it's remained sticky, that's because you haven't put enough hardener in. Simple as that. You need to put more hardener in it. Now, I've done that in the past, and people have criticised me and said you're wasting that hardener. It will harden just as quickly if you put half as much in. Yeah, maybe, but also if there's just a little bit too little, it won't harden at all. It will go solid, but it will stay sticky, and then when you try and sand it or work it in any way, it will clog up the paper, and then that will gouge big lines in the job. This is more for body filler, but with the resins, it will stay flexible. If you're looking for a piece of resin, when this is done, I'm going to put the skin on this in a minute. When this is done and I've finished laying up the actual proper fiberglass matting, I need it to be as hard as the tank and good and thick. If I've only got 95% of the required hardener in there, it will kind of go stiff, but it'll have a flexibility to it forever. And that means when I put the body filler on it to shape it, that flexibility will lead to the filler cracking. So that's very, very important. So obviously, if you're going to do this, this is the tip, and I learned this from my buddy Dan Bethel just recently. Put enough hardener in to make sure it cures. Put twice as much in. The only detriment, like I said at the beginning, to put in twice as much filler in as twice as much hardener into the job as necessary. The only detriment is it will have half the working time. So prepare yourself. Remove all the things off the floor that you might trip over. Get straight to the job and get it spread into the job quickly. Get the acetone ready to put the brush in so that you don't go, so the brush doesn't get trashed and go hard. So ultimately, preparation prevents poor performance. Make sure if you're going to put loads and loads of hardener in, and you're going to get what's down termed as a hot load, and it's going to go off real quick, that you're prepared for that. Simple, like I did, I put the tape around the top there. As soon as it started going gel-like, took the tape off, so there's no resin in that ring. So when I fit the cap back in, it will go in neatly. So little things, think ahead, and you can do a really, really good job on your own product. So that's the advice. My buddy Dan touched on it in a recent video, and I just wanted to say it in this one, and thank Dan for that, because it's very, very important. So many times in my history, when I was a young lad, I always used to think this annoying, because filler never went off. It always stayed sticky, and that's my fault, because I didn't put enough hardener in the process. So whenever you buy anything that has hardener, buy twice as much, buy a spare one. You could always take it back and get your money back on things like Halfords. They don't mind, it's not a problem as long as it hasn't been opened. All right, so there we go. Let's get on with it. Right, now for the next bit, I'm going to use cloth, cotton cloth and glue, a bit like a World War I aircraft skin. On the old aircraft biplanes, I'm going to slightly skin the wings before we put the fiberglass in. So I'm going to use some cotton cloth, just some rags, and I buy, if anyone's interested in this themselves, I buy my rags like that in a big block. That block costs about, I think it was about £8, and there's about 300 rags in there. They kind of come compressed, and I've been pulling rags out of that bag for about 6 months, and it's only gone down about a quarter. So it's a cheap way to buy rags. Right, that will do. Alright, now this little process is something that I've done it in the past. I did it on the seat unit for the Bandit on damage, and it works really well. I love it, and it's good fun. This is an old t-shirt, I said, just cutting off. And all we're going to do is skin the job with this first, and then trim off where it doesn't need to touch, so that I can then put the fiberglass over that. I'll show you. It's easier to do it than to show it, so like with all these things, I'm going to get stuck in, leave you some music. I hope you're enjoying the music, by the way. We had contact from somebody called Waffle. I won't give you his name because he's kind of not a recording artist. He doesn't have a website, he doesn't have a channel. He's just a guy that loves his guitar. He's obviously very good at it, and he does make music, and he just makes different tunes. He just enjoys it and lays them all down, and he sent them to us to use. So thank you ever so much, my buddy. You know what it's like. Finding music on the net to use free is really, really difficult. Otherwise it sounds like lift music, you know, the stuff music. So we're going to be using that. Here's a bit more from Waffle. Hope you enjoy it. I'll show you this at a little bit more than my slow speed. Right, so one skin, 3 hours later. That was 3 hours just doing that. You can see the process, there's no point in me explaining it, you saw what I did. You just get the, so this is, for those who are bound to ask, this is just super glue. And that's a kind of industrial quantity. That's a 50-gram tube. I bought this from Trago Mills, the famous Trago Mills. Many people know them. They're just a cheap shop that does all sorts of stuff. I mean, all sorts of stuff. You can buy super glue or saxophones. Literally, they do everything. A massive warehouse place. And I got these for about £2 each. Got half a dozen of them. So I will get down and get some more at some point. But that was about a third of that. So you could use regular super glue. It's a bit more expensive, but anyway, super glue. And just touch it on, goes through the cloth, bonds it, that's it. It's a little bit delicate. It's not that robust at the moment. All these fluffy edges need to be kind of bladed and trimmed or ground back so that that's nice and smooth, ready for the fiberglass. I'm going to put fiberglass matting over the top of this, but this is a skin which holds the shape. You make the frame with the eventual end shape in mind. So I wanted a ridge down the middle, so you put a ridge down the middle, and then when you stretch over it, these will always curve in. Naturally, because of the stretchiness of the cloth, you'll always get curvature inwards, like here and here, which I don't want. I want that to match the front, so I want that curvature to be straight. But that's only a base skin. The idea of this literally is a support skin. I'm going to resin this now, and once that's resined and laid up hard, that's not gone off nice and firm. I'm going to trim up all the bits and pieces. It's a bit delicate now. If I start kind of blading off all these frayed bits, much as that's a bit OCD, you can risk breaking the bond on the glue and it pops off the frame, and then because it's stretchy, it just pops out the way. You can make a bit of a mess. So done this a few times and getting a little bit better at it as I go. But I've got the shape, everything's right. That hole there, the box fits in that hole a little bit tight, but I'm not going to start trimming this back because it's only hanging on by a thread, as they say. So I'm going to resin the whole thing now, make it a little bit more solid and permanent, and then once that's done, I can start trimming and shaping and get the whole thing ready to just have 48 hours to set. So resin and double hardener. Right, you get the idea now. Definitely better than a white frame. So that's got to have about an hour and a half before I'm going to put any more over that. I'll put a second coat on it just to strengthen it up because it's just kind of squishy at the minute, and then that will be it for today. So because that needs an hour and a half, I'm going for some lunch. When I get back, I'll put the last coat on it and we're going to call it done. Ready for second coat. Hard. Let's give you a look. Okay, there we go. And that's 2 layers of resin on the cotton or t-shirt cloth, call it what you like, polyester cotton. Because it's stretchy, it gives me that facility. No sagging into the gaps, it's absolutely straight. So that there, dead flat, perfect. And following that line, perfect. Happy with that. Ground off this little joint at the bottom because it was kind of sticking real proud where all 3 of them joined with the weld, so just ground that back for now and that'll be fine. Just resin that in. It doesn't have to hold anymore, it's all in one piece now. There we are. Quite important, keeping the resin off this lip round here, which is where the tank cap bezel recesses into. So it's a bit close there, but that's fine. That was the idea. And then around the back, it's got a nice protective pull around there. So there's none of the bonding white stuff is exposed to the atmosphere anymore. It's all completely set. And I've put this hard line around here really just for convenience. It's easier to blend that line than it is to have it all jaggedy and raggedy and horrible and then try and blend it in different ways. I can just buzz along there with perhaps a flat disc and just flatten it in, sort of a 240 disc or something later. But it's going to get fiberglass matting next. That's the next thing. Fiberglass matting over the top to build up the strength, because now this is cool, it's strong, but the resin needs more to hold on to. The way this fiberglass resin works, if you poke that now, you'd kind of shatter it. It would crack. You'd get like a spider crack, like a windscreen, purely because the cloth is still flexible and the resin itself just becomes a hard plastic, and that will just crack. You need the fiberglass fibers to make it really strong. So it's going to get about 4 layers of fiberglass matting over the top, fine fiberglass matting, and that will make it properly strong. But I can't do that until that bit is fully cured, which will take about 2 days. Right, so there we are. Like I said, 2 days, can't do any more with that. Just got to leave it. Time, drying times, all the rest of it, usual stuff, same as paint. Right, one more thing. As I alluded to in the last video, Penny and I have a free prize draw coming up for you. So to enter the prize draw, you'll have to answer 3 Delboy's Garage questions. What that means is 3 questions pertaining to the history of this channel, what we've done, where we've been, stuff that you should know if you are a die-hard fan of this channel. So those of you who have been along with us for all of the distance of the 5 years, you will have the easiest time answering the questions. Penny has devised them. They're obvious and easy. You answer those correctly, stick them in an email, and we'll enter you in a prize draw for something rather amazing. You're going to love it. So that'll be the next video after this. This is Saturday. You'll see it on Sunday. So I'm going to have 2 videos this weekend for you. You lucky things. I'll leave you with a wall of friends. I'll leave that to dry. Take it easy, ride safe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.